If we had said, without a pandemic, if we had said we are building blend content, and I think we had maybe, this is from what I hear, because I wasn't here last year, but from what I hear, I think we probably had maybe about 20, 25% blend saturation in terms of teachers using it routinely, because there just wasn't, there hadn't been an impetus to say we're all going to use one LMS and you shall, right? And so given that saturation rate, and given the typical reluctance of teachers to, adopt wholesale a resource from central office, if we had said you have to use blend blueprint resources that come straight from the academics team, that would have been comical. But it was really about July. Well, it was when I got here, and I think it was maybe my fresh eyes that were kind of helpful in this situation, because the first 2 or 3 meetings, well, several meetings that I sat through in July, they kept making reference to virtual curriculum that the teachers were going to use. And I'd been in enough meetings to know that they had revised the existing scope and sequences to elevate certain standards, as priority and so forth. But to my knowledge, there wasn't a virtual curriculum. And so I finally said to my boss, I was like, am I missing something? Where's this virtual curriculum? And she was like, well, the teachers will build it in Blend. And I said, but didn't you just say that the 75% of the teachers aren't comfortable in Blend yet? So how's that all going to happen? And so all of a sudden it was like, there was this long, very uncomfortable pause. Because I think and it wasn't to anyone's, it wasn't anyone's fault, but it was really this realization that we had so many things moving forward at that urgent pace that we really hadn't synthesized the fact that we really had a curriculum problem. And so we essentially reshuffled our entire academic coaching team, and we built a structure for writing those internally on the academics team. And that went, on kind of keeping us on task here, as you think about the practice innovations in response to COVID, honestly, that's really the main headline for Austin, is we took that day's meeting and caught our breath, which took a minute. And we took our academic coaching team, we took our SEL coaches, we took our SPED coaches, we took our CP, our cultural proficiency and inclusion specialists, we took our creative learning specialists, and fortunately, we had the infrastructure to have those people at our disposal. And I realize that when I say that, not every district has that sort of people power, but we reorganized them. And essentially, since we had been told not to go to campuses physically this year anyway, coaching was going to look very different, if at all. And so our academics team became the curriculum collaboration team, essentially. And we had to build a template that we could all work with, so they would have the same template. It became communicated through the school leadership office that we were all going to use Canvas Blend. And that was its own culture shock, because they had not been quite so directive in the past. But in order for this to work, that had to be a non-negotiable. And so we're using Canvas pre-K to 12. And we supplement it with Seesaw at the primary grades. But we link the Seesaw things from the Blend course. And the purpose of that is to make sure that a parent with a kid in kindergarten, 3rd grade, 8th grade only has to learn one LMS primarily as the access point. And so throughout the whole process, we tried to put thankfully I have several AISD parents on my team. And so they got to be parents and they got to be curriculum designers because they saw the end user experience as well. The number of testimonials by teachers is really overwhelming. I'm so glad I had to do that for that little project, because it just served like such a shot in the arm for me to literally cut and paste comment after comment after comment after comment that said, I never would have been able to get through this year if you had not done this for me. Because they were all in that like deer in the headlights, bug-eyed emoji kind of place August 1st, especially if they weren't Blend literate. And they had to learn to customize them. And they had to learn to set up their little homeroom Bitmoji classroom or whatever they did. But they didn't have to think about where to find 75 resources that aligned with the scope and sequence and nest that into a course for their kids to see easily. And the ulterior motive we've had as a curriculum team, and I can't believe it's taken me 53 minutes to mention this part of it, but like we have SEL lessons, and we have cultural proficiency lessons, and we have creative teaching initiative lessons and structures. And so what our blueprint teams have done is all those people are in the same pod, if you will, cooking those lessons together.
Mm.
And so we've been able to bake in to the content we push all the stuff we value that they would have been having separate PD to try to figure out how to integrate, but we've been baking it in to the stuff we put forth as plan A instead of having it look like it's a bunch of stuff duct taped together.
I'm trying to remember where we heard that from another district too, that said like we had to take all of these folks had been working on these different things, and we just said, I'm trying to remember, it was one system, it was like every school, because they were a smaller system, the elementary schools, we put them on one team together, and they were working, they were no longer coaching in silos, they were working together. And that was very powerful, because it was like, to your point, we finally integrated what we valued rather than put it on top or put it as like a bonus.